curator, Johnny Hemberger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. If you haven't already checked out the most recent episode of Geek Therapy Radio, it was the Halloween special. And me and my friends had a lot of fun doing it. Basically, it was audio improv in the style of a 1939 radio caper, if you will. So what I had in mind was Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio broadcast that was so famous and fooled quite a few people. Well, enough people to make it a famous story. I was kind of thinking like that. I did it in the style of like a real Geek Therapy Radio episode where I just got back from the 1939 World's Fair and saw the new television devices, and we had breaking news that there was a bank robbery downtown, and the story goes from there. We join the police conference and we hear from the robbers. So if you're into something like that, if that sounds fun, it is so stupid silly. It is the silliest thing I've ever done on Geek Therapy Radio in the best possible way. So make sure you're subscribed to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, and you will be able to hear that. Even if you don't subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, just Google search Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hemberger, and it'll come up. It's the last episode I uploaded called Geek Therapy Radio Halloween Special. You'll see it. I'm just saying. If you haven't checked it out, go see it. Let's move on to the topic du jour. De morning, de afternoon, de night. That's not French at all. If you say de in front of it, is it French? Well, all right. The topic today is Apple's new MacBook Air, Apple's new Mac Mini, and the new iPad Pro. So we're going to get into it a little bit. I'm not going to go over every single gritty speck of this thing. But we're going to go over the important things and kind of my thoughts on these new devices. And I'll just say, TLDR, I don't objectively hate all of them. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm just a strict Apple hater, or that I'm a Windows fanboy or an Apple fanboy or anything like that. I'm not a fanboy. I just see these things objectively. This is what I think about them. There's pros and cons in my mind. And my opinions are just my opinions. They may not be your opinion. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment below with your opinion on these new Apple products. But for me, in general, I'm not exclusively pissed off. They're expensive. We will get into that. But let's start with the new MacBook Air. This is the newest... This is it's a new revision. Basically, since inception of the MacBook Air, this is the first most, it's not an iterative update, it's actually a full revisioning, basically, of the MacBook Air. And somehow it is even thinner and even lighter than the outgoing MacBook Air. I think the MacBook Air came out in 2014. So, the new MacBook Air will be available November 7th. All of these products will be available November 7th. So the new MacBook Air, Mac Mini, and the iPad Pro, new iPad Pros, are all available November 7th. Of course, you can pre-order now, but don't pre-order. Make a company earn your money first. So I'm not going to encourage anybody to pre-order anything. Wait for the thing to come out and then see if it's good. See if the company deserves your money. But I can help you kind of decide for yourself whether you're going to spend the amount of money on November 7th. So, like I said, MacBook Air. 13.3-inch edge-to-edge liquid retina display. Super high resolution. That is LCD. That is... LCD sounds like old technology. You know, old digital watches had an LCD display. But I promise you, and I don't even need to speak for it, it's actually an amazing display. So don't let the LCD aspect of it throw you off. Of course, it's an Apple product, an Apple device, it's an Apple display. It is going to be gorgeous. I will give Apple that. Their screens get very bright, and they're very color accurate, and they look very good. The MacBook Air has two Thunderbolt 3 ports. Two of them, are you freaking listening, Microsoft? Now, you still need to live that dongle life with an Apple, but it is two Thunderbolt 3 ports. The MacBook Air also has a headphone jack, and which I thought was surprising. With a PC, with a computer, you still need a headphone jack. There are still functions for which you require a headphone jack. So while, not to skip too far ahead, the new iPad Pros get rid of the the headphone jack. On the PC side of things, like the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air, they still include the headphone jack, which is nice. So again, 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. Hey.
Let my people go. Oh, but that's what
Right.
Okay, you know the brakes.
Yep.
We got the ID. You're a veteran. We've done this before.
Yeah. It would not be recording an episode of Midweek Geek if the illustrious Bob did not interrupt me, if he didn't obviously see the microphone in my face and me talking when he's walking in. But let's just roll with it. MacBook Air, 8th generation dual-core i5, and up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, and up to 1.5 terabytes of solid-state storage. I'm assuming it's NVMe. At first glance here, I'm not seeing anything definitive on that, but I would just assume, since everything else MacBook has put out right now is just blazing fast NVMe. I don't even know if they need to say that it's NVMe. We can just assume that it's NVMe. So I'm going to say up to 1.5 terabyte solid-state drive of NVMe. I thought it's cool that all these new products are made of 100% recycled aluminum. That is really neat. The MacBook Air starts more expensively than the previous generation MacBook Air started. The new MacBook Air starts at $1,200. That made me a little bit dizzy even just mentioning it. It's a Y processor. It's an 8th Gen i5 Y processor, meaning low power. It's dual core, hyper threaded. Starts at $1,200. Now you can say, of course, you can already start mashing on your keyboards if you're watching this on YouTube, that you can get so much more for your money for $1,200. Yes, I agree 100,000%. If someone is saying, should I build a gaming PC or should I buy a MacBook Air? It's not a question. It depends on your usage case, of course. But if they're going to have one computer, and it depends what they want to do with it, I'm just saying that your $1,200 can go a lot further towards horsepower, even in the MacBook realm.
You know, David Price could have just as well won.
He could.
But he did.
He did not.
Say, Lovey, are you recording something? I'll go away.
It's all right. It's okay. You're just going to be on it. Oh, you're recording something? Anyways, oh yeah, so $1,200. MacBook Air starts at $1,200. Yes, your mileage could get, your bang for the buck could go much further. Basically spending it on anything else other than the iPad Pro. We'll get into that in a second. Apple stuff is expensive, but with the MacBook Air, you're paying for, well, you're paying for hype. You're paying for the form factor. People could argue, yes, it's a sexy form factor. You're paying for just, it's like a piece of jewelry. Nobody harps on somebody for buying a really nice bracelet. You know that bracelet, it has got $10 worth of rocks on it, but they're going to charge you $3,000 for it. No one complains about that the way they complain about people spending the money on an Apple device. Now, again, is it the best bang for the buck? Hell no. Absolutely not. But let's move on to the Mac Mini. Again, also available November 7th. Out of all these devices, I think the Mac Mini is my favorite out of the bunch, and I'll get to why in a second. I'm probably never going to buy one. But out of all these three announcements, launch announcements today from Apple in New York City, Mac Mini gives me the least amount of trepidation or guff in my heart. You know, it makes me less dizzy. So anyways, Mac Mini, up to a 6-core Intel i7, up to 64 gigabytes of RAM, and up to a 2 terabyte solid-state drive. Again, assuming that it's NVMe because it's 2018. These are 2019 models. Of course, it's going to be NVMe. The Mac Mini has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. Again, Microsoft, what in the hell are you doing? Your main competitor has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. You have a 0 Thunderbolt 3 ports. Oh, but we have the Surface port. Anyways, 2 full-size USB ports, HDMI, and up to 10 gigabit Ethernet. The entry level is a 3.0 6 gigahertz quad-core i3, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 128 gigabyte SSD. So for that entry level, the quad-core i3, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabyte SSD, it's going to be just a regular gigabit Ethernet at that point. It starts at $800, $799 for the Mac Mini. And again, the reason why I have the least amount of guff with this Mac Mini is that, yes, that $799, $800 is expensive, but as far as getting into a brand new computer and getting into the Mac ecosystem, as far as Mac is considered, that's a reasonable entry point. Again, only within the sphere of Mac devices is $800 even remotely, arguably, a reasonable entry point. $800 as an entry point for anything on the PC side is not worth talking about. You can spend way less to get into a Windows-based device than $800. That's a given. But I'm just saying, within the Mac ecosystem, in the Mac universe, $800 is an easier pill to swallow for the price of Apple entry. Would I do it? No. Never. As far as the PC goes, that is still a ripoff for what you're getting. And I know a lot of you are thinking, thank you for saying for what you're getting. Yes, for what you're getting, $800, i3, 8 gigs of RAM, and 128 gig solid-state drive, that's not enough. That is not enough. That is a ripoff for $800. But again, in the Mac universe, reasonable to take the bite out of the apple. Reasonable for the knowledge of good and evil. Let's move on. Let's move on to the iPad Pros. Make sure I'm recording. Yes, I am recording. Also available November 7th. It comes in a 10.5-inch or a 12-inch. And interestingly enough, the new 12-inch is the same screen size, but a smaller enclosure, which is nice. And they look really cool. They look amazing. I do like my old iPad. It's not a Pro. It's the iPad 6 or whatever, 6th generation iPad. It's perfect for what I need. You can get the new ones, the 10.5-inch, 12-inch. The new ones, they start with 64 gigs up to 1 terabyte of storage. Here's your price of entry for an iPad Pro. A base model 10.5-inch iPad Pro starts at $800. That's more than the Mac Mini if you're keeping score at home. And the 12-inch starts at $1,000. Mother of God. This is a tablet. Very powerful tablet. Most powerful tablets the world has ever seen, but still, could you swallow, starting at, I didn't even say most expensive, starting at $800 for the small one, $1,000 for the big one. Does that sound reasonable to you? I'm not being sarcastic. Does it sound reasonable to you? To me, it does not. Holy crap, it does not. It comes with the A12X Bionic CPU. That's an 8-core CPU with 4 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. So like efficiency cores running things like fetching your email in the background. 4 performance cores for running things like they're going to have new desktop version of Photoshop and AutoCAD coming out for iPad Pros, which is amazing, at least for the iPad Pros. 7-core GPU, and this is, I don't know about this, but Apple claims the 7-core GPU is as powerful as an Xbox One S. I have my reservations about that. That seems like a whole lot of hype right there. But I have no doubts that it's a very powerful GPU in a tablet. It's probably the most powerful GPU in a tablet, period. I have no doubt about that. But as powerful as an Xbox One S, I don't know. What do you think about that? Well, I can't wait for benchmarks, but you can't even benchmark, apples to apples from an iPad Pro to an Xbox One S. You can't do an apples comparison of that. So benchmarks are going to be kind of moot unless I'm wrong about something. I think the best benchmark would be something like AutoCAD. or video rendering or something like that. Maybe there's a kind of apples to apples, different architectures on both devices you're benchmarking, but whatever. I'm just saying. Apple's saying that the 7-core GPU is as powerful as an Xbox One S. We'll see. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I hope it is. That would be awesome. The biggest news is that the iPad Pros adopt USB-C. Hallelujah. Ditching the Lightning port, and thank God for that. Now you can charge out of your iPad Pro, meaning you could plug in your iPhone, at least your iPhone, and charge your iPhone off of your iPad. That's cool. That makes the iPad Pro a battery bank. Now, Android devices have been doing this for a while. Specifically, that I know for a fact, the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus definitely lets you send power out through the USB-C cord. So if my girlfriend's phone was low on battery, I could plug it into my phone and charge her phone up, give her some juice from my phone. Android devices, especially Samsung, I know for a fact, have been doing that for a while. But this is more of a commentary on modern Apple. Modern Apple does not innovate anymore like it used to. There's no brand new iPod anymore, new iPhone coming out from Apple. They see what the rest of the industry is doing, and then they do it, just package it much sexier and market it much better. The Apple Pencil. Funny story about the Apple Pencil, that you can use it with the iPad Pro. Funny story, Steve Jobs hated stylus. Hated styli. He thought it was pointless, get it? Because you had your own finger. Your finger was the stylus. So he never wanted to use stylus. So he never wanted to use a stylus in his products. So while now Steve Jobs is dead, you have the Apple Pencil. We're not going to call it a stylus. Let's call it the Apple Pencil. For whatever it's worth. Thank you for listening to Midweek Geek this week. I have been Johnny Hemberger, your mental curator. It means everything to me that you listen. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe all the social media. Just search for Geek Therapy Radio. And above all, please be good to each other, starting with yourselves. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay, as usual, at the end of Midweek Geek, I'm doing a 60-second here for Audi Central Houston. The new Q8s are coming for the first time ever, the new 2019 Q8s, and they are unimaginably cool. They are just the coolest SUVs on the road, and that is like a precursor for the new e-tron that's coming out next year as well. The e-tron, by the way, doesn't burn any gas at all, so make sure you are going to AudiCentralHouston.com to get caught up on all this stuff. Go visit Audi Central Houston in person anyways, just to peruse the floor. It's like going to an art gallery of technology and performance and safety, and just the way they bend the sheet metal is amazing. At Audi Central Houston, that's where you can get all the Audis in every budget, A3 to the R8 or the Q8 there in between there. Audi Central Houston has you covered on all fronts in any budget. So visit AudiCentralHouston.com right now to start perusing before you go visit my friend Danny Posey, the general manager at Audi Central Houston, and tell him that Geek Therapy Radio sent you.